Back in May of this year, I put out a video about the green card trap when it comes to the Visa Bulletin. I told you in that video that the Visa Bulletin was advancing rapidly, not because there was just so many visas to give away, but because there's less people qualified for those visas because of the travel ban and the 75 country pause. Because of the 75 country pause and the travel ban, there were just visas sitting that could have went to people from those countries, but they didn't qualify for those visas. So it was just a surplus based on just that reason alone. And because there was that surplus, it is now going to other countries that do not have those restrictions. I called it a trap at the time because the gains were not real. They weren't based on anything real. They were based on a particular situation, and that situation can change at any time. And if you remember and acted, I told you that you needed to take action as soon as possible because, again, these situations can change at any time. The travel ban could end. The 75 country pause could end. And guess what happened? On August 21st of 2026, the day before the September Visa Bulletin dropped, a federal judge in New York told the federal government that that 75 country pause was illegal. They could not move forward with the 75 country pause. They had to go back to processing visas for people from those countries. And because that federal judge struck it down, it has no effect. The federal government is now forced to not only interview people and process their visa applications, but if you already had an interview and was only refused because of this pause, you can actually now be issued your visa because, again, the federal government is now being told by this judge in New York that they can no longer move forward with that 75 country pause because it was illegal. With the September Visa Bulletin, the pause going away will not immediately affect the September Visa Bulletin, but we are going to be looking at that October Visa Bulletin very closely because I suspect that there will be some retrogressions in October. But here's the thing, the September Visa Bulletin contains some of the biggest jumps when it comes to categories. Because of these massive jumps in September Visa Bulletin, if your category, your priority date is current according to the September Visa Bulletin, take action, especially if you are trying to apply for adjustment of status, okay? Remember, you can apply for adjustment of status if you are in valid status in the US and your visa category is current. If while the application is pending, your visa category retrogresses, meaning the dates move backwards, you can still have your application pending. It's just USCIS will not be able to actually approve it, schedule you for an interview or any of that until your category becomes current again. So this video is going to do two things. It's going to go through the Visa Bulletin so you can see what the numbers are because these are historic, and if you can take advantage of it, I want you to know about it. And two, I'm going to be explaining what this court case actually means for you and your case moving forward, what we can expect from the October Visa Bulletin moving forward. And like I mentioned last month, September is the end of the fiscal year for the federal government, meaning for us in the regular world, we go from January to December. For the federal government, they go from October to September. So this is the last month of the fiscal year for the federal government. This is all the fiscal year 2026 numbers. Next month, we're going to get into a new fiscal year, and with this court ruling, a new landscape. So we're going to be going over that. Now, a quick refresher. Every single month, the State Department puts out a Visa Bulletin, basically letting us know when someone would qualify for a visa, that they can actually be approved the visa or they can start the visa application process. And those are reported in the final action date chart and the date for filing chart. In addition, USCIS then tells us which of those charts they are using for adjustment of status purposes, meaning which of those dates do you need to look at to know when you can actually apply for adjustment of status in the US. One important note for September, which is unusual, is that as of the time that I'm recording this video, USCIS has not told us which chart they're going to be using for September. So I will update you either in the notes or something if it comes out before the video goes up. But if it does not, I'll probably put it in a pinned comment or in the description once we have that information. Now let's start with the date for filing chart. For F1, which is the unmarried sons and daughters of US citizens, worldwide, China and India advanced about 7.5 months. A meaningful jump, continuing August momentum, okay? Mexico and the Philippines unfortunately stayed flat, no jumps at all. F2A, spouses and children of lawful permanent residents, are still current. Okay, this is something that a lot of people have been asking me about, but it is still current for all countries, okay, including Mexico, Philippines, India, all countries. This means that there is no priority date cutoff. If you are in F2A, you can file for adjustment of status. Again, we need to wait to see if USCIS is going to be using the final action date or the date for filing chart. But if they're using the date for filing chart for September, you can file for adjustment of status if you qualify for it, okay? A lot of people that are married to lawful permanent residents sometimes worry about whether they can file their I-130 and the I-485 at the same time. You can only do that at the same time if your priority date is current, which right now, if USCIS uses the date for filing chart, which they have been doing all year, so I don't see why they wouldn't, but if they continue to use that, F2A can file I-130 and the green card application at the same time. Again, if you qualify for adjustment of status in the US. All right. F2B, unmarried sons and daughters, 21 and over of lawful permanent residents. This advanced 8 months for worldwide, China and India. Mexico and the Philippines stayed unchanged. For F3, married sons and daughters of US citizens, after being frozen for most of the year, okay, for most of the year, F3 was the category that did not really have much movement, but it advanced, wait for it, 20 months. F3, the married sons and daughters of US citizens, the date for filing advanced 20 months. And this category has been basically frozen for most of the year, okay? So it advanced roughly 20 months on the date for filing chart for worldwide, China and India, Mexico and the Philippines, which is the theme, okay? If you notice the theme here, Mexico and the Philippines stayed unchanged. And then for F4 category, brothers and sisters of adult US citizens advanced 16, you heard that, 16 months for worldwide and China. India remains frozen, unfortunately, at December 15, 2006, and then Mexico and the Philippines also remain unchanged. Now let's talk about the final action date chart. Again, this is when you can actually get approved. The date for filing tells you when you can start the application process. The final action date tells you that your application can actually be approved. So let's look at these numbers. For F1, worldwide, China and India advanced 13 months from December 15, 2018 to January 22, 2020. If you have been tracking F1 all year, if you're in the F1 category and you've been tracking it, you know how significant that is. That is a big jump for F1. Again, if you are able to take advantage of this, this is the time to take advantage of it, okay? Make sure you do everything you can to go to your interview, if your interview is scheduled, and get approved so that you can get your visa before the end of the fiscal year this September. Mexico for F1 picked up 1 month and Philippines remained unchanged. For F2A, we saw an advancement of 1 month across all countries to August 22, 2026, which is basically current for most people, okay? So that is incredible for this category. Again, if you're applying, take advantage, okay? If your interview is scheduled, do everything in your power to attend that interview. F2B advanced nearly 20 months from January 1st, 2018 to August 22, 2019, and that is for worldwide. China and India, Mexico and the Philippines remained unchanged. The F3 for the married sons and daughters of U.S. citizens has the single most dramatic numbers in the entire bulletin. Worldwide, China and India advanced 29 months. 29 months from May 15, 2012 to October 22, 2014. Almost 2.5 years of movement in one visa bulletin. Mexico and the Philippines remained unchanged. For F4, which is the brothers and sisters of adult U.S. citizens, we are seeing major movement. This is historic movement. Worldwide and China advanced nearly 26 months from September 1st, 2009 to October 22, 2011. Philippines gained about 3 weeks. India and Mexico stayed unchanged. Now, let's talk about this. F3 jumped 29 months, F4 jumped 26 months, F2B jumped 20 months, and F1 jumped 13 months. Listen, I have been covering the Visa Bulletin for a very long time, and I have been looking at the Visa Bulletin in my 11 years as a lawyer. I have not seen movement like this in the family-based category in my 11 years of practice. So this is historic. But remember, this is the end of the fiscal year. Typically, at the end of the fiscal year, the State Department is looking at all the visas they have given out versus all the visas they are able to give out. And they're looking at those numbers, and that's why you're seeing these jumps. Because remember, up until this Visa Bulletin, there's the 75 country pause. There's also the travel bans. So they're not able to give out the visas as freely as they were giving it out years prior. So that is why we're seeing these massive jumps, because they have to basically move it along because they have all these numbers that they weren't able to give out during the year. Let me take you back to January of 2026, where the State Department decided to put a pause on 75 countries being able to get immigrant visas. Remember, this chart is only for immigrant visas. So they paused immigrant visas for 75 countries, meaning people from those countries are not able to get visas to the United States. That means even if you qualify for that visa, even if you meet all the requirements, the only reason they will refuse you the visa is because of this pause. And that caused hundreds of thousands of people to be blocked from getting a visa. Even though their priority date was current, even though they already finished all the documentation required to get an interview, they will get that interview, except at that interview, they will be refused. And that refusal meant that visa that was supposed to go to them stays with the State Department. That number stays there. So imagine 75 countries, a bunch of applications that have interviewed but did not get a visa. All those visas that were supposed to go to those people are just staying in the State Department visa bank. And for the month of September, for the Visa Bulletin, they're looking at how many visas do they have in their visa bank, and what does that mean for applications pending, right? And that's why we're seeing these massive jumps. And that is what I called the green card trap in May, because dates were moving artificially fast, okay? They were not moving because, Congress gave more visa numbers for each category. No, they were only moving because of this artificial thing, which is people that qualify for the visa were now no longer able to get the visa, so State Department gets to keep it, and now those visas are unused, which means there's more visas to go to the other countries that are not on the 75 pause or on the travel ban. And as I told you, this would not last, because if the pause ends, if the travel ban ends, we're back to where we were before. And the State Department will need to redistribute and basically recalculate all these numbers. And we can potentially see retrogression. Not even potentially, we will see retrogression in these categories that are jumping 20 months, 29 months, 26 months. We are most likely going to see retrogression in those months. And again, I know I'm using the word retrogression. Retrogression is the opposite of advance, right? We're seeing right now that these dates are advancing, moving forward 26 months. We may see in October, if this court case stays in place, that those dates get to move backwards, retrogress. So instead of moving forward 26 months, they may move backward 20 months. Because now there's more people that qualify for a visa that they are issuing visas to, and less numbers in that visa bank. Okay, so we can realistically see a retrogression in all of this. Now let's talk about the court case. On August 21st, in the Southern District Court of New York, a judge vacated the 75 country pause. The court vacated the 75 country pause on 3 grounds. One is that the government violated the Immigration and Nationality Act, which prohibits discrimination based on nationality. It also found that it required visa refusals that had no legal basis. There was no reason to deny these visas because the person meets all the requirements. But for this pause, there was no reason to deny these visa applications. So there was no legal basis for the denial. It found that it exceeded the Secretary of State's authority. The Secretary of State is running the State Department, which includes the embassies and the consulates. However, this court is saying this does not extend to being able to just arbitrarily say these countries do not get visas to the United States. It goes beyond the powers of the Secretary of State. Basically saying, get Congress to do it. That's what they're saying. On that last part, get Congress to do it. The State Department cannot just do it on their own. They need Congress to do it for them. But again, the INA, Immigration and Nationality Act, says you can't discriminate based on nationality. So it fails on that as well. And this is a worldwide, nationwide vacation, okay? It is vacated nationwide. It's not just in the state of New York. Okay, it is in the whole country. They need to start processing these visas. But here's the thing. The government has until September 11th to file an appeal. And there's other parts of the case that needs to be decided. But again, they can't move forward with this, but they can appeal this decision. That's something to keep in mind. The State Department, the U.S. government can choose to appeal this decision, which if the higher court uphold it, would mean that these jumps forward will continue because, again, 75 pause rule remain in effect if higher courts say it remains in effect. But if they agree with the lower court that said, no, this is illegal, the retrogression is more likely. So what does this mean for you if you are part of the 75 countries on the pause? If you are part of those countries and you've already had your visa interview and you were refused because of this, the State Department has to now start processing those visas because they said if the pause goes away, you don't need a new interview. They can move forward with actually issuing you that visa. They'll probably contact you about bringing in your passport and all of those things. So just keep an eye on your emails, okay? Whatever emails that you use for your visa application, please keep an eye on it, because they will be contacting people if they choose not to move forward with an appeal. And even if they appeal and there's no stay on the decision, meaning there's no pause on the lower court's decision, they will basically move forward with processing those visas until a higher court says that they no longer have to. It is important to note that if your country is on the 75 pause and on the travel ban, you are still on the travel ban, okay? So for a country like Nigeria that's on the 75 country pause and on the travel ban list, the partial travel ban list, you are still on the partial travel ban list. Like, you do not, this 75 country pause ruling does not flow into the travel ban. Okay, really important there. And it's important to note that similar arguments can be made for the travel ban, but it's going to be harder because the travel ban is specifically rooted in national security. That's how the US government has basically sold the travel ban, is that it's rooted in national security, whereas the 75 country pause was not. It was rooted in public charge, which clearly this court found was not a good enough reason to do that, because you can do an affidavit of support, multiple affidavits of support, to overcome a public charge issue. So in FY 2027, which starts in October of 2026, we're going to see a fundamental change in the landscape of Visa Bulletin. Because again, if this 75 country pause remains vacated, that means there's going to be more people that qualify for a visa getting a visa, and which means there's going to be less excess visa numbers available, which again will lead to retrogression, which is why I've been telling you, if your visa category is current and you are able to file stuff right away, do it right away, because you don't know when the landscape will change. And we are seeing that right now. At the end of the fiscal year of 2026, we are seeing a court case basically that is going to change the landscape for FY 2027 starting in October. So what can you do to take advantage of this? If you are in a situation where your visa category is current and you are looking to apply for adjustment of status and you qualify for adjustment of status, file for adjustment of status so you can at least have your application in. Even if there's a retrogression, USCIS will not reject your application, because when you filed, your visa category was current. It just means that you will need to wait until your visa category becomes current again before they can actually approve your application. If you already have an interview scheduled in the month of September and you are in one of these categories, do not miss your interview. Do everything in your power to make sure that you attend that interview, because again, if you miss your interview and it goes into October and your category retrogresses, making your priority date no longer current, the State Department, the embassy, or USCIS, if you're applying in the US, will most likely cancel your interview because your category is no longer current. For you to get an interview at an embassy or with USCIS, your case has to be approvable, meaning your visa category has to be current. And if it's not current, they're not going to schedule that. So make sure that if you have an interview in September, that you go to your interview and do everything in your power to get approved, so that you do not fall victim to this trap and end up being retrogressed and have to wait even longer. If you're looking to apply for adjustment of status in the US, for September, we still don't know which chart USCIS is going to use. So first, before you do anything, before you file your application, you need to confirm which chart USCIS is using before you file that adjustment of status, so that you do not get your application rejected. Okay? I feel like I've been talking about the Visa Bulletin and the traps built in and how these jumps are artificial for like months. And now, unfortunately, we are going to the other end of that, where we may be seeing retrogression. We may be seeing cases slowing down because there's now going to be people from 75 countries that are now back in the visa applicant pool that can now get those visas. So that's massive. Okay, that's going to cause a massive shift. But again, make sure that if you have the opportunity, that you are taking advantage of it and that you are not waiting. If this is your first time learning about the Visa Bulletin, just know that you need your priority date. That's the key. Know your priority date, know your visa category, because that's going to help you take advantage when there is these momentums and movements in the visa category, and will help you also have a realistic expectation of when you can expect your visa to be approved. So next month, I will be back with the October 2026 Visa Bulletin. This is the first month of fiscal year 2027. We are going to also keep up with this court case, because if the government appeals and there's a stay, we want to know that, because again, that's going to affect the October 2026 Visa Bulletin. If the government does not appeal, that's also going to affect the October 2026 Visa Bulletin. So we will look at what changes happen, what happens in the world that affects the Visa Bulletin, so that you know exactly what is going on and how all of this works. If you have any questions about the Visa Bulletin or any other immigration topic, please feel free to put them in the comments. Like, share, subscribe, do all the YouTube things if you are liking this content. And if you are in a situation where you are starting your immigration journey, or you're already in your immigration journey, but you want a second eye on your case, you want someone else to prepare your application for you, or you want a full service attorney to help you through your case from beginning to end, please feel free to reach out to me. You can do that by going to my website, lilylegal.com, click on contact us, and you can schedule a date and time that works best for you for us to talk about your situation and see if I can help you in your immigration journey.